It's an honor and privilege for me, in my informal capacity as a member of the board of YES, to help open this exhibition. I want to thank Victor Pinchuk, who is here with us, who will speak in just a minute or two, for the various initiatives he and his foundation and the entire YES community have undertaken, quite recently in Davos, where a somewhat larger exhibition was presented to a huge number of people. And as I have learned over the years, nothing is as impressive for the minds of people as pictures. You can read long speeches, but the pictures, the photos, the videos are what actually sticks in your mind. And this is why this exhibit is so enormously important. And I want to thank Victor and his entire team, Svetlana Kowalczuk, where are you? And Thomas Valle and the entire team for their enormous effort in making it happen and to make sure that our team, the Munich Security team, understood that it was going to be essential to have this element at this conference, because it is the first conference in memory where a major nuclear power is conducting a war of aggression in the heart of Europe, trying to subjugate, trying to dominate, trying to eliminate a neighboring country. That is not only a problem for Ukraine, it is a problem for Europe, it's a problem for the transatlantic community, it's a problem for the world. And let me conclude by just pointing out, because I think that this has not been sufficiently well understood by many of the media representatives here in Munich. It is remarkable that under these conditions of war in Europe, the Chinese leadership has decided to send not, some vice foreign minister, but to send the senior-most Chinese foreign policy person, Wang Yi, longtime foreign minister, and now, of course, member of the Politburo, and he will speak at this conference tomorrow. In other words, I conclude from this Chinese willingness to be a representative at that level that China wants to be included in efforts to think about how this war can possibly be ended, hopefully sooner rather than later. Having said that, it's my pleasure, my honor now, to hand over to Victor Pinchuk. And I'm extremely pleased to see that a long-term member of the advisory board of the Munich Security Conference, somebody who has spoken here so many times, that John Kerry is with us, and I hope that Victor, you can hand over to John for John to say a couple of words also. Now, Victor Pinchuk.
Dear Wolfgang, dear Madam State Secretary of Defense, dear Special Presidential Envoy Kerry, and dear Chief of Staff of President of Ukraine, Yermak, I think Mr. Yermak already online with us, and dear friends, thank you that you are here. My name is Victor Pinchuk. I'm Ukrainian businessman, and for me, my greatest honor is for all Ukrainians to fight against Russian aggression, for our independence, for freedom, for sovereignty. For more than 6 years, I was involved in the creation of Holocaust Memorial in Kiev, in Babi Yar, in the place where in 1941, during 2 days, German Nazi killed approximately 34,000 Ukrainian Jews during 2 days. And we created this memorial, Holocaust Memorial, with a dream that such a tragedy will never happen in the human history, with a dream never again. But unfortunately, since 24th of February 2022, we are witnessing genocide committed by Russian against Ukrainians almost on the daily basis. We understood that unfortunately our dream never again didn't work. And we changed our strategy from never again to stop now. And we understood we have to tell to the world this story about this tragedy as loudly as possible and as widely as possible. And together with the Office of President of Ukraine, we decided to organize exhibition about Russian war crimes. And first time this exhibition was shown last year in May during World Economic Forum, and we transformed a building which before for many years was a Russian house to the Russian war crimes house, and almost all world media which covered World Economic Forum told this story about Russian genocide and terrorism against Ukrainians. And I think then this exhibition was shown in Brussels, headquarters of NATO, in Brussels, European Parliament, in London, in the building of British Parliament, during annual meeting of United Nations in New York, and this January already in Davos one more time. Unfortunately, each time we must update, because almost every day we have new images, new pictures of killing, of war crime. Unfortunately, even now in that movie, we included images, tragical images of war crimes committed already in January 2023. Here you can see Ukrainian kids in Kherson. They spent time during occupation, but they were, this movie was made by Ukrainian artists already after liberation. These kids just walked and sing song, making fun about Russian dictator, and just they were recorded. And I think this is a significant song and also a very important sign. These Ukrainian children will never give up, and their parents will never give up, and Ukrainians will never give up. Only one question: how many Ukrainians will die before we will stop this war? And this is in big part in your hands, our Western friends, because we can make, you can make, because by your very strong decisions, you can make the end of the war faster. And this is exactly the idea behind this exhibition, because we believe in this war many fronts. Of course, main front is a military front when Ukrainian heroes fight and risk their lives, but cultural front and front of communications also vitally important. We have to win there, and we understand that culture and art is very powerful weapon. It helps the main world's leaders, decision makers, to understand better through emotions, to understand better their responsibility. We have hope that they will visit this exhibition, they will feel responsibility, and they will send more weapons, including planes, tanks, long-range missiles, as much as possible and as quick as possible. We believe this exhibition will contribute to our victory. Thank you very much, and thank you very much to Munich Security Conference and to Wolfgang Ischinger personally that you welcome this exhibition. We really appreciate this, and we believe it will be very, very important for Ukraine and for Ukrainian people and for our victory. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Victor, very much for those important words. And Ambassador, it's really great to be here with you. It's always an honor, and thank you for your extraordinary many years of stewardship of the Munich Security Conference, really the premier security conference in the world. Victor, thank you for putting this exhibition together, and thank you for your leadership, which we saw in Davos and we see here again. It is entirely appropriate, more than appropriate. It's an imperative that the Munich Security Conference, of all places, be presented with this exhibition, and I hope that all of the delegates, that most people here have an opportunity to get here to not only see this, but by coming here to remind the world of what is at stake. We thought we had really left the type of behavior that we have seen from Russia, beginning merely with the invasion itself, but then proceeding to all of the ways in which they have broken the laws of decency and humanity. It began with entering into the war itself, which is a crime, and which is an illegal, oppressive move by a leader who has paid zero attention to the lessons of the last century, but is now practicing the worst of what we confronted in the 20th century. It is a war crime, folks, to bind a prisoner and then execute them, shoot them in the head. It is a war crime to kill your prisoners. It is a war crime to have 3-year-old children raped and then murdered, and women, civilians, raped and murdered. Those are all war crimes. And we learned in the last century that as leaders, we have a fundamental responsibility to humanity, which was reinforced by the War Crimes Tribunal after World War II. President Putin asserts cynically that this is somehow an anti-Nazi enterprise that he is engaged in Ukraine. But we all know better. This is about his dream. This is about his passion. This is about his grievances with respect to behavior over 25, 30 years, which could never excuse the kind of activities that we have seen in Ukraine. So you can't just go on day to day and do business as usual without drawing the world's attention to these kinds of activities. The people of Ukraine deserve our attention. They deserve the world standing up for the laws that they are fighting for. It's their lives that are being given. Most of the rest of Europe, except those who volunteered to go in one form or another, are not the ones bearing the burden of fighting the war. So the very least that we can do and have been doing within the framework of NATO, within the framework of our allegiance to the laws of behavior in war, the very least we can do is guarantee that we are bringing the world's attention to this on every opportunity possible. I might add, the world has seen a little bit too much of this in this century, and I'm referring to what we've seen in Syria and what has happened in other parts of Africa and elsewhere. So that's why it's imperative for us to stand up. You can't meet in Munich and talk about security without talking about standing up against what is happening in Ukraine. So, Victor, thank you for summoning us here. Thank you for providing this display. And may we all here at the Munich Security Conference reaffirm our commitment for as long as it takes, as President Biden has said again and again, as long as it takes. And hopefully, wiser minds will prevail, and hopefully Vladimir Putin will come to the table recognizing the imperative of making peace. Thank you.
Perhaps now we will see the address of Mr. Yermak, the head of the Office of the President of Ukraine.
Dear Mr. Wolfgang Ischinger, dear Mr. Siemtje Möller, dear Mr. Viktor Pinchuk, ladies and gentlemen, the main topic of the Munich conference is security. We all want to live in peace and security. But for us in Ukraine, this is not possible now. Every day, Russia, which has unleashed an unjust and brutal war against us, kills, rapes, and tortures our people. As early February, over 60,000 war crimes have been committed. Over 9,500 civilians, including 461 children, have been killed. More than 78,000 civilian infrastructure objects have been destroyed or damaged. More than 155 cases of sexual violence were registered. Our children and their parents cannot feel safe either. To date, more than 16,000 cases of forced displacements of Ukrainian children have been registered. And these are not orphans only. These children are being separated from their parents, taken to the filtration camps, taken to the basement of torture chambers, and then they are sent to Russia, presumably forever. Some parents are illegally deprived of their parental rights and forced and gunpoint to agree to their children being taken away. What kind of security can we talk about if you can lose the most precious things you have at any moment? Your life, your children, your health. The murder of Ukrainian mothers and the forced deportation of children would not have been possible without one crime, which is called, as scary as it sounds, maternal. It is crime of aggression. What is a crime? What marked the beginning of the aggressive and unjust war against Ukraine? And we will never live in safety unless we punish those who have unleashed this war. The fastest and easiest way to reach the goals is to establish the special tribunal to try the Russians' leadership for the crime of aggression. Europe and the entire civilized world are increasingly realizing why this is necessary. In early July, no one wanted to discuss the creation of the tribunal for Putin and his entourage. Now, President of European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has said the following: the next step is to create a tribunal. We are still discussing how exactly it will be organized. However, I assure you what we have the political will to bring the perpetrator to justice, including for the crime of aggression. And if we have the political will, we will find the ways. In general, we work on the tribunal established was gaining momentum. During this time, the European Parliament voted on the first decision entirely devoted only to the establishment of the tribunal. The decision orders the establishment of the tribunal without the slightest delay. The Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe has once again voted in the favor of the establishment of the tribunal. This time, the decision explicitly states that the crime of aggression cannot be prosecuted by the International Criminal Court. The Hague City Hall endorsed the deployment of the Special International Tribunal in the city. And the most importantly, in January, the participation of all representatives of G7 countries and the numbers of the other countries, the first meeting of the core group was held to consider the mechanism of the tribunal creation. The meeting was attended by a representative of 20 countries. However, new risks have emerged. Some countries spoke in favor of the hybrid tribunal, which is unacceptable for Ukraine. Why this option is unacceptable? Because we have no guarantees that it will let us to treat Putin, Lavrov, Mishustin and others of immunity. And this is the main problem with the hybrid project. Two other options for creating the tribunal are establishment of the special tribunal on the basis of the agreement between Ukraine and the United Nations, the adoption of the relevant UNGA resolution, or established of the tribunal of the basis of the multilateral open international agreement between the states of the civilized world. These two options are acceptable, and world demonstrated the world readiness to deal a strong legal blow to specific international criminals. The world needs of the broadest possible international institution of responsibility of aggression with the highest level of legitimacy and recognitions. This is how we will remove all other controversial issues, including the personal and functional immunities of Putin and his accomplices. The entire civilized world must to take all possible measures to restore and maintain global peace and security, especially at the time when the risk of avoiding responsibility for the most brutal and bloody aggression since World War II is so great. Establishing a special international tribunal to investigate the crime of Russia's aggression against Ukraine would be the most important steps for the ending impunity. I urge you to support Ukraine on this issue and to begin immediately to find the way forward. We must act collectively, not only to protect the lives of Ukrainian children and mothers who are potentially innocent victims of another Russian bombing of civilian cities, but also to defend the norms that underpin our shared global security and hold those who violated them to account. We count on your leadership in this important issue. We will survive, we will endure, and we will surely win. Glory to Ukraine.
Let me share with you 3 thoughts on this exhibit. It's a small one, so to say, but I believe that it's a very important one because we see and we give voice and an image, a picture to all the countless victims in Ukraine. It is very important that we don't forget that after each number, after each name, there's a face, and there's a family, and there's hurt, and there's people mourning for the loss that they face. It is very important for that we have this exhibit and that we show the stories and that these stories come deep to our hearts so that we know why we support, why we stand straight at the side of Ukraine. And also what Ukrainian people suffer, how they suffer, and what they have to carry. The second point why it is important to have this exhibit is that here is not only shown the stories of the victims and the numbers of the victims, but also the joy and the happiness of children when they are freed from the aggression and the oppression. And this also reminds us for what is fought for, and for why we stand at the side of Ukraine. It's for these people, for these children, for the happiness and for the freedom and peace they can now live in. And this is a very good combination here to see the reason why we are here and why we stand and why Ukraine fights against the war of aggression of Russia. And the third reason why it is very important is that we show with the photographs that the war crimes are happening. It's not something that's invented by people. It's definitely and concretely happening every day, and it's the photographers who take the evidence, so that what was mentioned before in the tribunal, that we have evidence what has happened on the soil of Ukraine. So therefore we have three very important reasons why this exhibit is a very precious one, and I'm very glad that I had the honor to be here in the inauguration ceremony to be part of. And I'm also honored to bring the best greetings from Minister Boris Pistorius, and that we stand at the side of the Ukrainians, that we're very proud to help and to support Ukraine. I was told to say the exhibit is now opened. So.